me. Good morning, good morning, good morning, or good evening, or good night, depending on when you're watching. So today I'm going to be talking about, actually this is inspired by Laura actually asked me to talk about different levels and teaching different levels and grading different poses to different students in your class. So I'm going to come at it, as always, from a completely different perspective. So the question that I'm going to ask, or what I'm going to propose or suggest, is that rather than coming from the point of view of leveling, which is offering something, which is what I've done for hundreds of years, well, maybe not hundreds of years, but for all of the original 10, 20 years of my teaching, starting with doing things at the very basic level, then adding on the next level, then adding on the next level. So you're going the easiest, progressing up to the hardest, which is how I was trained to teach and how I taught for a long time. The disadvantage of doing that, obviously, is that everybody wants to get to the hardest level, and if they can't get to the hardest level, then there's a little bit of dislike. Have I missed it? Have I not achieved enough? Have I got somewhere else to go? So rather than leveling, I'm going to suggest that we look at it from a point of view of integration. Integration. Now, I love a bit of integration. And for all of you who know that I was originally into maths, I do love a little bit of maths integration, but today I'm not talking about maths integration, I'm talking about integration in our body, and also fundamental integration in our mind, integration of yoga into our life, integration. It's all about integration. But let's just start at the very beginning. Integration. So if we come from the point of view of integration, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the fact that we are just one muscle, we're just one body, we're just one connection the whole way through. So even though we can separate our bones into joints, in reality we want the whole lot to work as one. So we want to integrate our body. If we come from the point of view of integration, then we will discover that there are places where we're not integrated. So if I'm moving my arm and I can move it so far, but maybe not somewhere else, then we can find spots where there isn't integration available at this moment. And if we look from the point of view of integrating what is present, when we integrate what is present, then we can build from that to gradually take it in a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. You think about, I don't know why cleaning my house has suddenly come to mind, but if you're cleaning your house, you clean a little bit and then you expand that out to a little bit more, then you expand it out a little bit more, then you expand it out a little bit more, and gradually you integrate more and more and more of the house and suddenly the whole house is clean. Well, maybe not in my life, but maybe in your house, you get the whole house done. And so what we're looking at is this idea of bringing movements into our class that look to do this integration, and then that way it allows students to work at their level without being in competition with each other. They get to find their sticky bits without being in competition with each other, and even without being in competition with themselves, because then they can look at really loving, supporting, and cherishing those sticky bits. I've just done a video where we look at wash rag, because for me, wash rag, if you don't know, it's the one where your knees go one way, your head goes the other way, arms go one way, is a fantastic pose to explore this in, because to try and figure out what the hell it is that I'm talking about. In wash rag, we look at getting movement across the upper body, so from fingers to fingers, and integrating. So it's not just that we're turning the hands, it's not that the movement isn't turning the hands. You can see as I turn my hand, it's automatically turning my lower arm. But in this situation, this position, you can see that it's not turning my upper arm and wrist. Whereas what I want to do is integrate my hands to my wrist, not just my hands to my wrist to my lower arm, but to take that movement the whole way up so that it moves my upper arm, it moves my shoulder. From moving my shoulder, it moves the other shoulder, and then it integrates the whole way down to the other hand. Obviously the screen is too short to see the whole thing, but you can see that I can integrate this movement across the entirety of my upper body, from fingers to fingers. Similarly, doing the exact same thing from head to toes with your knees bent, rather than just turning the head and turning the knees, which is what a lot of students do and what a lot of teachers do when they start. It's turning the head and turning the knees, but actually integrating that movement from your head through the neck, through the torso, through the pelvis, down into the legs and even into the feet. We look at that in terms of integrating it by finding different places to start from, and just looking at this whole idea of, can we get this connection? Can we get a connection from head to toe? Can we integrate from head to toe? Can we integrate from head to toe? And so this whole movement, rather than being about a movement, becomes about integration. It gets really complex when you're looking to add this orientation with this orientation, and then we can come back to an unintegrated movement, which is again a really cool place to play. And so every time we find a little sticky spot, every time we find a place to play, every time we find somewhere that doesn't integrate, so maybe our shoulder doesn't really move so much, it moves to our shoulder bone, the ball and socket, but doesn't move into the collarbone, then we have a playground where we're looking to bring that movement a little bit further. And therefore everybody can move and work at their own level. Everybody can develop more integration and develop more freedom of movement, and ultimately develop more strength, more freedom in their own body, without having any awareness of what's going on with anybody else, without having any competition with what's going on with anybody else, and without being in competition with themselves. Instead, they can be curious. Wow, that's really interesting. I can't feel that in my shoulder. Well, let me see if I consciously bring my shoulder in. Oh, I can start to feel it now. Oh, that's really interesting, but it doesn't pass across. See what I mean? And so you've continuously got progression in your class. You've continuously increasing the level of freedom. You're continuously increasing the level of awareness. You're continuously increasing that somatic awareness, that somatic connection, that mind-body connection with our students and with ourselves, without getting into not having, wanting more, without that kind of competition in a way, because that kind of can't do, amn't doing, all those kind of fighting bits can you see even how it brings tightness into the body, which is the exact opposite of what we're looking for. We're looking to bring freedom into the body. What's really, 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 really deadly is that the exact same thing happens in our mind. So the same as we start to integrate the flow in our body, integrate the freedom in our body, integrate the movement in our body, we can then start to also look at the fact that the exact same thing happens in our nervous system, the exact same thing happens in our mind, the exact same thing happens in our families, the exact same thing happens in our work. And so we gradually get to bring this freedom, because fundamentally what we're looking for is freedom of movement, freedom of feeling, freedom of being, and freedom just to be exactly who we are in this exact moment, and to allow our best selves be in this best body, in our best mind, and we get this lovely freedom. Anyway, it's a journey, and why else would it be? You know, if we could get it instantly, what would be the point? It's a bit more fun when we get to play. So what I'm inviting you to do is to look for the integration and the freedom, to share that with your students. Invite your students to look for their integration within their body and freedom within their body. And then once it happens there, see where else it brings you. There is a YouTube video thingy. Sorry, it's very technical, isn't it? I have a YouTube video talking about how to teach wash rag specifically from that point of view, which might be interesting. Have a little check and see you soon.